Boo! Red Scare 2. I don't think I've done this lecture, so we're just going to spend 10 minutes going over the time period known as the Red Scare 2. And this basically is the late 1940s and the early to mid 1950s in domestic affairs in the United States. We're in the Cold War again. Can you feel it? And basically we've already gone over Cold War, containment and domino theory in Korea and Vietnam and all that junk. And that's out there. We're not talking about what's going on over there anymore. We're going to be talking about what's going on right here. The idea of how does the Cold War affect us here at home domestically? Do we change? Does the government's role change? Is there any type of hysteria? And this is labeled Red Scare 2 because, of course, we've already gone through this. Red Scare 1, if we go back to the Palmer raids and Sacco and Vanzetti and Schenck and all those ideas, the concept is a thematic thesis. During times of crisis, rights go down. And that's what's going to happen in the United States in the 1940s, late 40s, early 50s. So, as we're fearful of communists outside the country, we're also fearful of communists inside the country. This would be like an analogy of using 9/11 and kind of looking over our shoulder when we're at the bus or we're on the train, thinking, of course we have to fight them, where they exist in Afghanistan, but we can't turn our back to what's going on around us in everyday life. So this fear basically becomes not, I don't want to say hysterical, but it's used in that fashion. Politicians want to prove that they're doing something to combat this fear. The fear is that crisis I talked about. And when you have crisis, people are looking to the government to kind of get them out of this crisis. And if that means you need to be strict with me or strip me of a right or strip him of a right more often than not, I'm okay with that. Many people will argue that the Bill of Rights doesn't come with holes, that you don't get to just say, well, put that thing down because we're fearful. The Bill of Rights is concrete. But nevertheless, in the late 40s, Harry Truman embraces this idea of doing something to prove or to show or to catch communists, or he's against communism. So he goes and kind of signs on to these loyalty boards. And again, I get fearful when I hear this language. I'm sorry, I can't not show my true stripes. But when you have government agents set up as loyalty boards to test your patriotism, to find out if you're a real American, I'm not so sure if that does what it's supposed to do. Signs the paper. That's what a loyalty board basically did. If you wanted to work in the government as a school teacher or a postman or a politician or whatever, you had to sign the paper, proving you're an American, that you're renouncing communism, that you're part of the fight. Now, I would always say that, someone who's really a radical and who's going to blow you up probably is going to sign the paper anyway. But, a lot of Americans who stood on the Bill of Rights and civil liberties and said, I don't have to prove I'm an American. I'm an American because I was born here. That's why I'm an American. They lost their jobs. So we want to see the Red Scare, catching communists and being fearful of what's going on around us, but also at the expense of maybe some innocent people going down. Some of the other vocabulary words that you might see on the test are HUAC, 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 the House Committee on Un-American Activities. And this committee was put together as basically the congressional way of showing the people they were out to save them, to protect them against the communists. And what they would do, Richard Nixon was part of this, Ronald Reagan was part of this as head of the Actors Union in Hollywood, is they would call people suspected of being, pinko or reds or liberal, too liberal, in front of Congress, and they would grill them to prove that they were a communist. And it's kind of hard that you're not, to prove you're not something. Can you prove that you're not, I don't know what to say, that you're not, you don't believe in Narnia? Prove you don't believe in Narnia. Well, I don't believe in Narnia. There, I said it. Well, it's hard to prove it factually. So many actors and actresses and directors and Hollywood people who seem kind of as leftist, as well as government people and school teachers and businessmen, were brought in front of this committee, and their reputations were smeared. Who wants to hire the guy that was accused of being a terrorist? you know, hell, hire me. Yeah, I know, but I'm not. I know they asked me and they think I am, but I'm not really. Hire me, please. Wink. You know, so a lot of people in Hollywood, Orson Welles and Lucille Ball, and were grilled and blacklisted. That's the word you'll see on the test sometimes. Their name was taken off the list of hireable people. HUAC, eventually into the 50s, becomes known as, or the idea of the Red Scare becomes McCarthyism. So you need to know this word, McCarthyism. McCarthyism is named after a guy, Joe McCarthy. You know you've done bad when they name a bad thing after you. McCarthy was running, Joseph McCarthy, I'm sorry, was running for re-election in the Senate. And as a tool to gain support or popularity or notice, he began claiming that he knew there were communists that worked inside the government. And he would have them in his briefcase, national security. I can't show you the names, but I got you the names. This would be akin to today, somebody saying, look, I know that there are people working for Obama in the White House that work for Al-Qaeda. I have proof. And once you say that, and you're a senator, I mean, people are going to listen. People are going to go, well, you know, what's going on? And it began to become even more expansive. You know, 10 names, 12 names became 20 names, became 30 names, became 40 names. And this rampage known as McCarthyism is now known as a way of basically propping yourself up by making false accusations. You're not a real American. You're a communist. And then everybody kind of believing it. McCarthy eventually self-destruct. He was an alcoholic, I think. I think he drank a lot. But eventually, he gets into this kind of frenzy of accusing everybody of being a communist. And I'll tell you, if you're ever going to accuse anyone of being a communist or a terrorist or a killer, you should leave the army out of it. And that's what McCarthy did that brought him down. On national television, he accused army officials of being communist sympathizers. And that didn't go over very well. A famous line in American history, somebody at that hearing, you know, said out loud, "Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency?" And that basically popped his bubble and McCarthyism deflates. But later on, this stuff went under covers. Richard Nixon, and even in the late 60s and early 70s, used the fear of communism and people who were against America to spy. The FBI spied on Martin Luther King, on Malcolm X, on John Lennon. John Lennon, the singer! Could you imagine the FBI, like, you know, following around, you know, I don't know who's popular today, DJ Jazzy Pop a lot? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's what happened. So I guess we're going to be out of time soon. We only have a minute or two. I just want to review with you now. Red Scare 2, I would say 1948 to the late 50s, or, you know, even in the 60s a little bit. And again, the idea, we can go over, I just thought of more vocabulary, is the idea of HUAC, the idea of loyalty boards, the idea of McCarthyism, and also, you know, the country was out for blood. I mean, look, there were spies. I don't want to say there weren't no spies. There are terrorists. And two spies that were caught, well, there were a few, Albert Hiss, but the Rosenbergs pop up on the test. The Rosenbergs were a married Jewish couple, I believe from New Jersey, and he worked for the Manhattan Project. And basically the evidence showed that he was giving our atomic secrets to the Soviets. And because of the fervor of anti-communism, they not only went to prison, the wife they didn't really have a lot of evidence on. They gave them the death penalty, and they electrocuted them. And that really, I think, is the, you know, proof in the pudding that the Red Scare really was a hardcore event. That, you know, if we were willing to put to death a married couple for fear that, you know, they were communists or for what they have done, that's pretty gangster, and we did do that. On the other side, there are people who argue that what Rosenberg was doing, Julius, who never admitted to what he was doing, wasn't that he did it because he was a communist. He did it because of the balance of power. That he did it because he was fearful that if the United States was the only one with the atomic bomb, that we would be more willing to use it and we could cause world destruction. And he kind of saw Hiroshima and Nagasaki as proof. And he felt if the Soviets had it, that they were rational enough not to use it like we would be rational enough not to use it if we knew they had it. That's just a conspiracy theory. I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe you shouldn't. I shouldn't have said that. Nevertheless, we're out of time. Red Scare, the Rosenbergs, Alger Hiss was a spy who was caught. You have the concept of HUAC and the loyalty oaths, McCarthyism. We banned the Communist Party back then. That was a Supreme Court case. And I guess that's it, guys. It's not a huge topic on the test, but we certainly want you to get all of the questions right. So we'll see you in class or on Regents Day, and see ya.